Hello and welcome to the Empower Couples podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is about relationship satisfaction and stability and what really keeps couples together.
It can feel like a mystery these days, right? Especially with the abundance of information from books and podcast episodes and different influencers you follow and YouTube videos. It can feel like you are ping-ponging all around. Okay, wait, no. It's inner child work. We need to do that. We need to resolve our trauma, right? Oh, we need to work at our attachment styles. Oh no, I read this book and we need to work on our communication. Oh, we need to work on masculine, feminine dynamics, right? And that's just listing a few things. That's what's going to keep us together. And I'm sure that you all would agree, I would hope, that the goal isn't to just stay together. Of course, that is something we hope and wish for, especially if you have started a family and you really want your family to not only stay together, but thrive together. But we don't just want couples to be together for decades, just to be in the same house and survive life together. We want to thrive together. And that's why this episode is going to also be about satisfaction.
You know, it's a question that psychology has gotten interested in answering when it comes to marriages, right? What determines relationship health or success? And, I think psychologists are interested in this because they like to have an answer, because now they can have a formula to say, can we predict the success of a particular marriage? And wouldn't you like something to predict how successful your marriage is going to be? But like you started to say, nowadays there are so many things that individuals can relate to say, hey, is our relationship doing well? Are we going to be successful? Or what do we need to change now to become more successful? Because maybe we're in a challenging season. And like you already mentioned, there's a few things like, well, our personality traits are just too different, or it's our attachment styles, past traumas, inner child shadows, or it's circumstantial. Well, no one else has had the infertility challenges that we have had, or we had a family illness or death. No one's gone through the financial struggles that we've had, or what we've had to lose, or we've had to sell and move a house, move locations. Maybe it's parenting challenges. So between all of that, right, is where's the answer lie? Is it circumstantial? Is it your patterns? Is it traumas? Is it attachment styles, communication styles? What really is it?
Yeah. So today's episode, we're going to actually take you through a model that this isn't just something we invented and made up. This is psychologically proven. It's well known in the psychology industry. We're big on not just like pop psychology and things that sound trendy, but truly going to what do the studies say? What does the research for decades show, as well as then taking it into the conversations we have every day with couples and what we see and what we hear.
Well, because I think by the time you get to a place of real challenge, what you're really saying is, well, there's a loss of attraction, there's a loss of love, loss of trust. There's too many things that have gone unaddressed and unrepaired, right? And
we're arguing too much.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the result, if you will, of trying to determine, well, was it circumstantial? Was it a part of our innate personalities or our patterns? And the success can be a broad term. So psychologists have defined, which is great to us, because we've talked a lot about this term, but psychologists have defined more accurately to use the term relationship stability for a bridge to things like overall relationship satisfaction and then relationship duration, right? Because like you're saying, you don't want to just be in a relationship from obligation or fear. So just to say, well, relationship duration is our measurement for success wouldn't be accurate, because it is about the relationship stability. And prior to that, we can actually measure relationship satisfaction. So that's really where we're going. So we want to link to this VSA model, and specifically for marriage. So just a couple of terms to put out there, and then we'll dive in. So VSA stands for vulnerability, stress, and adaptation. So you break that a little bit further down, it's actually what they call enduring vulnerabilities. Now, these are your patterns. These are innately and also inherited things like the things from your past. So that determine, say, like your upbringing with your primary caregiver. You get attachment styles, things that have happened to you like traumas, or what some people call like inner child shadow work. You have your communication styles, your conflict avoidant, right? Or maybe your anxious attachment style. So all of those things actually play into, as well as your personality traits, right? Where you fall on the big 5 personality traits: conscientiousness, neuroticism, the big 5. So that's kind of like bring in kind of your personality, right? Kind of the wholeness of it from the various things that have happened to you. So call that enduring vulnerabilities.
You can do as much work as possible on those things. And there are things that you're going to have to kind of manage throughout your life, right? Especially if they were really deep-rooted experiences or they were persistent experiences growing up and it really formed in these neural pathways, you may have to manage those certain, whether it's an insecurity, a fear, a pattern, for your entire life. Some things you can really do some deep work and eventually disappear some of them, but a lot of them are going to be things that you stay aware of and navigate and manage.
Yeah, and I think I have to do more research myself, but I would say they have attached enduring vulnerabilities because of what you're saying. Inherently, you don't have to like overcome every single thing that has happened to you to have a high level of relationship satisfaction, leading to relationship stability and what we might say then like successful duration.
Yeah.
So that it's such a good thing to kind of understand. Like, I don't have to overcome everything of myself and become the most ideal person right in this moment to have high level of relationship success. So we'll get to the answer to that. But so you start with that and think of this as like just like a linear process. But in the beginning, you have vulnerabilities, and then right under it, you have a box called stress. Particularly external stress.
Yeah, so these can be everything from financial challenges that you encounter, a family member being ill, certain dynamics that you deal with your children. It could be one of you becomes ill or has to deal with long-term illness. It could be that you lose a child. It could be really anything that you can perceive as stress. It could be career stress, right? And of course, we need a healthy dose of stress to keep us motivated, but things that can be persistent or that feel significant or that we don't work through, that of course can feel overwhelming at times for sure.
So think of these 2 boxes at our starting line. They're stacked on top of each other. And when you start to think about that from a relationship standpoint, you, the listener, you have a whole set of enduring vulnerabilities. Your partner has their own set of enduring vulnerabilities that they're bringing in. But in your day-to-day, if your circumstances are kind of fine, they're kind of under the surface. So now you have going forward in your life, you're going to have different sets of circumstances and different sets of external stress, we'll call it, that you will experience different than any other couple. So that's where you can see the complexity. We both have these vulnerabilities. And then in our marriage, we're going to be confronted or faced with maybe some similar to some couples, but, overall a different set of stresses as you go about. So those 2 things now kind of come together. So like we can move those lines forward and they both connect to a box called adaptation.
And I want to elaborate on adaptation, but I think it's worth noting that those first 2 boxes of vulnerabilities and stress, that's where all the attention tends to go. And that's where a lot of people blame, like, this is why we didn't work.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't work because of your trauma, or we didn't work because we faced this incomprehensible stressor and challenge that we couldn't overcome. And so again, it's, of course, they are parts of the dynamic and being stable and successful and satisfied, but we're about to go into even further what really keeps a couple together and satisfied or not. So going to what you brought up, adaptation. So there could be, let's even call it 10 couples who face very similar, almost exact stressors, and who also have inner child wounds and patterns that they witnessed, how their parents argued and their attachment style. So, I mean, think about how many billions of people there are. You can find, for example, 10 couples with nearly exact stressors and vulnerabilities. However, some of them would be very satisfied and stay together. Others wouldn't. So this adaptation piece is really, I think, one of the big areas to focus on. This is where a lot of our work comes in, which is how do you handle and process those things, right? You can even think about...
This is where you get the common phrase, right? That it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. And this becomes very accurate for looking at the adaptation process. Because, yeah, like we're bringing together, it's not about the external stresses, and it's not inherently about the vulnerabilities that you come in with. And again, from a general perspective, it's not what happens to you. It's not even what happened to you in the past. Right? It's about how you respond to it. And that responding to it for us is really built upon the tools and the skills that you learn and implement together so that you have a more effective adaptation process over another couple that, let's say, wouldn't.
So just some examples of that. It is your communication, right? In order to cope and adapt, we have to be able to communicate through it, be able to navigate the conflict. We have to be able to problem solve. We have to be able to, compromise. Some people would say sacrifice, but I think the word we use for compromise is really about flexibility, which is like the ability to say, you know what, okay, based on the circumstances we're facing, I can be flexible. I can adjust to the circumstances, to the roles right now. So we like flexibility over compromise. Support. Does that mean that you have external support, whether that's trusted family members that you agree on? This is different than gossiping to them. Or it could be support through a mentor, a coach, a therapist. We a lot of times need an external perspective to help us navigate it. So that's an adaptation tool. Is the ability to adjust and change behaviors in order to maintain a healthy and satisfying marriage. So notice we have to be able to adjust and change. And that's why I'd say one of the overarching differences we see between couples who thrive and stay together and those who don't is if both people have a willingness to see their part in it and be able to change. How can you improve a marriage if one person is like, nope, this is who I am, take it or leave it? Okay, well, if how you're showing up is having you to negatively adapt, then you're really not committed to the success of a partnership.
Mm-hmm. So then it becomes a fluid process too, right? So as your external stress shows up, then more default in the beginning, you're going to see your vulnerabilities show up almost as a reaction. But you want to start to use that as data. Like, how do I respond? Mm-hmm. Not like in just this exact stress moment, but when stress similar to finances or to conflict or to parenting shows up, you want to now start to use that kind of as feedback. Because now you take your adaptive process, which we have things like your family meeting, right? Mm-hmm. Debrief after a conflict, have a family meeting once a week, mm-hmm. check in on your love accounts, check in on is there anything unresolved or unrepaired that we need to go back to. Right. And this is where you really have to start to learn. Now, as we said, the VSA model says enduring vulnerabilities. So there's a level at which kind of your patterns and your personality and sort of your past traumas, they do kind of carry with you. But in the adaptive process, you start to look at yourself and say, well, where can I do a little bit of work on the vulnerabilities? Mm-hmm. Where can I do some work on interrupting my pattern of when my fear shows up to how I react, or my self-regulation, down-regulating my own emotions, communicating what I need, initiating repair, and even asking questions, understanding my partner's unmet needs and expectations, and again, being flexible and open to changing my own patterns and behaviors so that when a new external stressor shows up, I've done a little bit of work, on those so that our adaptive process sort of continues to evolve. Now, the importance of this is how you go about your adaptive process now links directly to your level of relationship satisfaction.
And of course, satisfaction can be measured in so many different ways. I mean, there's so many assessments and tools and ways that you can measure satisfaction. And I think a lot of it has to do with where you're putting your focus. And everybody has a different kind of scale of satisfaction. Some people, it's about emotional connection. And then the other person's like, well, I just need to feel like we're not arguing, right? So it's almost like there's two different standards. We have a really great self-assessment that couples can go through. That's in our family meeting guide if you don't have that, because then you can really self-assess where you both feel you are in the core areas of a relationship. So that's a great resource. I wanted to mention, though, that part of what can help both of you increase satisfaction is to feel like you both are doing your part in that adaptation process. I just wanted to make one more remark about that because we get so many messages, emails, we do sessions, and one thing I've been noticing lately is that one partner will get really burned out and discouraged if they are doing 99% of the heavy lifting. I'm working on myself. I'm reading the books. I'm listening to the podcast. I'm seeking therapy. And then eventually it's like, I need you to pull your weight. I need you to help us adapt better to this. So I just wanted to mention that if you really want to boost both of your satisfactions, make sure you're both putting in the work and that you care about the other person being satisfied. Again, you can't be so rigid and like, well, this is just how I do things. Well, this is one I hear a lot. Well, this is just how I was raised, so this is how I do it. Whether that's how I'm going to parent or how I'm going to handle a financial decision. Okay, well, that's how you were raised. But if it's causing stress and you two aren't adapting to the situation well, then you have to be willing to go, okay, maybe there's some adjustments here that we can make together. Again, that's the better focus than, well, this is just who I am. This is how I was raised.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think when I talk to men, I hear it come out more as this is who I am, which is obviously linked to how you were raised. But I think men, at least the ones that I talk to, are more present to, well, like, this is who I am, kind of accept me for that. And rather than saying like, oh, we're not probably thinking so much about how we were raised, right? Yeah. It kind of shows up as, hey, this is who I am. So now it's that culmination of high or low level of satisfaction that moves us to determining relationship stability. So high level of relationship satisfaction as it pertains to your combination of enduring vulnerabilities, external stress, your adaptive process, that's going to give you a high or low level of relationship satisfaction. Move that forward, that's going to give you a probably tumultuous, high or low level of relationship stability, right? So now we're starting to put this all together. This is how we determine relationship satisfaction. And from there, yeah, we can, I would say, tie in relationship duration. But again, it's not just that you've been together a long time. It's that, well, bringing all those metrics together, have you been together for a long period of time with low level satisfaction or high level of satisfaction? So your real sort of metric going forward for relationship success is, have you been together for a long time with a high level of relationship stability? Because that goes back to a high level of relationship satisfaction, which goes back to you have a great adaptation process. And then that's kind of your line of delineation saying, well, yeah, from that standpoint, it didn't necessarily matter what our enduring vulnerabilities were or the stress circumstances that we faced. And that kind of gives you a better model, if you will, for how are we doing?
All right, get ready for what I'm about to say, because I love what you said. Do not confuse a lack of conflict for there being true peace in your relationship. Because some of you might say, well, no, we have a pretty stable relationship. We don't argue much. Okay, well, we've met a lot of couples where they aren't arguing much, but they're really not talking about much.
Well, let me link to this. So if you think of it from the model perspective, you can't get to a high level of relationship stability from a low level of relationship satisfaction.
Yep.
So that's exactly what you're saying. Just because you're not having conflict, the better question is, well, what's your real level of relationship satisfaction? That tying to stability, not stability from low level of satisfaction because we've been avoiding conflict and we don't really talk to each other and our connection's pretty low. We don't handle conflict very well, so we really just avoid it all the time. Like, you're not going to have a high level of relationship satisfaction.
Exactly. And that's why we focus so much on being able to navigate conflict in a healthy way, because couples who can handle stress, like, you are going to face stuff in life. Okay, we have faced things because we want to live a great life, which means you're going to encounter barriers and challenges. We both have our own vulnerabilities, but conflict to us, because we focused on being able to do it in a healthy way, engage in healthy conflict, we can adapt. So think about even conflict as an adaptation tool, as long as you aren't waging war against each other and tearing each other down and hitting below the belt and then not repairing for days or weeks. Of course, that's a negative adaptation process that's only going to damage your satisfaction and your stability. So you guys, please do not underestimate the power of learning to engage in healthy conflict instead of avoiding it. That will only have a negative consequence to your satisfaction and stability. I feel fired up right now, guys.
I can see it and feel it.
I think this model is great. And for those of you who are also feeling fired up by this and you really want some actionable ways to focus on boosting your satisfaction and being able to help you guys navigate stressors, because we know a lot of you are, you've got 2 kids under 2, or you've got teenagers that you're navigating, or you have illness in the family or financial challenges, whatever stressors you are facing. We want to support you in that. And that's why one of our resources that we really recommend right now is our 30-day couples challenge. We have our next challenge starting here in just a few days. So you want to go to mycoupleschallenge.com and join the challenge right away. Because look, no matter how busy you are, no matter how many stressors you have in your life, you can focus on staying bonded, connected, being able to adapt, keeping your satisfaction strong through focusing on your love account. And the challenge gives you daily prompts in order to focus on that. It's going to improve your communication. It's going to have you both feel more loved, respected, appreciated. So truly, I can't recommend enough just the daily messages we get from people who have done the challenge. Man, it just lights me up, and really, I want you to experience that too. So go to mycoupleschallenge.com and you can get started with that. And pro tip, you actually get the family meeting guide included when you sign up for the challenge. So there's just so many reasons to join, but we really hope you enjoyed this episode, and keep really focusing on your partnership. Make sure that you actually dedicate some time and some energy to your satisfaction and your stability so that you don't just stay together, you thrive together. So with that, we appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you on the next episode.